90.3 WHPC, the voice of Nassau Community College. Welcome to another edition of From the Press Box right here on 90.3. I already said that, but you know that. Anyway, we're part of the Sports Talk family here every Monday, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. And don't forget the other Sports Talk shows here at WHPC, Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. And, of course, Tuesday nights, 10 p.m. to midnight. My name is Rob Leonard, and joining me, of course, is my brother and award-winning sports writer, Tim Leonard. Good morning, brother. How are you?
Good morning, brother. Doing outstanding. How about yourself?
I had a dream this morning, and I'm not talking about anything else, but I woke up, and I thought we were back at the radio station because we've been broadcasting since March remotely. You're at home, I'm at home, and this is what happened, brother. This is a strange dream.
Sounds like it already.
I'm at the station, and I'm keep telling everyone there's tons of people working there. That's one day in my dream. And I said, come on, get out of the way. We're going on the air. We're here in the studio. Get out of the way. And no one was moving. They're just looking at me like, what do you mean we're in the studio? And I'm like, come on, we're in the studio. We're back. Come on. And then I woke up, and then I realized we're not in the studio. We're still, broadcasting remotely because as of right now, it's the best thing to do for safety reasons for COVID-19.
Yes.
But we do miss our homes there at the radio station. So, but it was a weird dream, brother. There was a lot of cameos in my dream of people who work at the station. You know?
So your dream was kind of like Sharknado.
Maybe, yeah. Sharknado comes into my life so much, brother. It's surprising that you love Sharknado, and I've only seen like one of them, and Sharknado is something I should really like because it's so stupid, and I like stupid stuff like that. So, hey, that's the way it works.
Hey, that's what On Demand is for, brother.
Yeah. So anyway, let's start off, brother. I know you want to start off with one thing, but the Islanders are up 2-1 right now.
3-1, brother.
3-1. 3-1 right now.
3-1. The Islanders last night took control of the series.
I know.
And the Islanders last night put themselves in excellent position to move into the Eastern Conference Finals. I know I, for one, was inspired.
I was, too, and I have to say, third period, again, the Islanders come up big. This seems to be their period where they say, oh, yeah, we're going to take care of you right now. And, it was a very good game. Brock Nelson, 2 goals. Flyers didn't look good, except maybe the second period was maybe their best period.
Second period was a scary period.
Yeah, so anyway, I said the Islanders were going to win in 6. It might be 5, but I'm going to stick with 6, of course. But they're playing very well, and it's amazing. We've talked about this, and before the season got stopped, they looked like they were in a downfall. They were the downward spiral, and now they're back and they're playing really good hockey. I mean, really good hockey to watch right now. And it's even, let's put it this way, brother. And yesterday's, on the back page of the Sunday Daily News, it says Islanders up 2-1. And the Daily News doesn't even have an Islanders beat writer.
I was going to say it's a simple headline, but it says it.
Yeah, it does. Thank you for the Odd Couple reference. Yes. But, the Islanders aren't, they don't care at the Daily News because they don't even have a beat writer. They use the AP story. But the fact that the Islanders were on the back page means something. And at least and just as a media thing, Larry Brooks of the Post is covering the Islanders now. He's a Ranger beat writer. So it's...
Well, that could be... That's financially based.
Oh, I'm sure. But you know something? The Islanders barely have any press coverage in outside of Newsday. At least it's getting a little bit of coverage, and we'll see what happens the next round. Maybe there'll be a headline with an actual byline on the Daily News. So,
don't go crazy. Don't go crazy on that, bro. I mean, maybe that would be a possibility if there wasn't a bubble. Let's face it, Larry Brooks, I'm assuming anyway, is covering the game by watching it on television in his apartment or his house.
I'm sure. Well, I think they all are.
So, to get somebody, obviously nobody's going to be in the bubble, but, it's right now, that's the only way you can cover it. And they'll get on a Zoom call after the game to do interviews, and it's certainly not the way you want to cover something if you're a reporter, but that's what we're left with at this point. And like I said, because they have a bubble situation, there's only so much you can do, and sadly, I said last night, and I'm not sure if I'm going to make this prediction yet, but I said last night that 2020, it wouldn't surprise me if the Islanders actually won the Stanley Cup, because then we wouldn't be able to go to a Stanley Cup parade. And we've been waiting 40 years for one around here.
36.
I'm not counting the Rangers, but it's 83. Yeah, so it's close to 40 years. But COVID, if the Islanders were to somehow win the Stanley Cup, there's not going to be a parade.
No, you can't have one.
How are you going to have a socially distanced parade? It's not possible, because let's face it, if the Islanders did win, Islander fans would come out of the closet, and they were coming out of the woodwork, and would want to have that parade. People who haven't gone to a game in 10 years or more would be jumping all over each other to get into a parade. But these are the times that we live in, sadly. That's why I'm saying the Islanders. It wouldn't surprise me. Let's put it that way. That's all I'm saying.
I don't either. But you know what they could do if COVID does get cured, like our president says it's going to be any minute now.
No.
There could be maybe the beginning of the season you have it instead. Depending on when they start the season. That's I don't think they're going to start the season until December or January.
Yeah, it's going to be. Definitely next season is impacted. That pretty much goes without saying. So I guess they could do something like that, and just put off the celebration until. But if you don't have a celebration before next season starts, then you're done basically. So you can't have a parade with a new team, because that's what it would be. You'd have guys in that parade that weren't part of this team, because every team is going to make changes after a season. And let's face it, even if the Islanders do win the Stanley Cup, Lou Lamoriello's got changes to make in his team. This team certainly isn't perfect. So, I would be disappointed if the Islanders won the Stanley Cup and Lou Lamoriello stood pat and said, "No, we're good. We don't need to make any moves," because this team does need to make some moves.
Well, sure, and Lamoriello is known for always making moves, and the history of the Islanders has always been making moves. Getting Butch Goring, trading away, Dave Lewis to get Butch Goring was a major deal for the Islanders, and so
yeah, for sure. But that's we'll talk about trades and trade deadlines later with baseball, because that's today. But that's something that hockey. I don't want to say they didn't really have this season, but once they shut down, that was it. Moves were done, and you had your team, and nobody really knew what was going to happen. But now we're in a situation where we came into the playoffs, and everybody just the teams that were in the lower echelon, let's say, they all played for their spot in the seedings, and the higher echelon teams, they were the ones who, they were just kind of playing to get ready for the season. And, here we are now that I still maintain that the Islanders are at least one of, if not the best team in the Eastern Conference right now. So, it's a nice situation to be in, because, again, if you look at the Islanders this past weekend, they played what we're now calling Islanders hockey, and both games were very similar. The Islanders scored 3 goals in both games, and just really defended well, and that's what they've been doing. Last night Brock Nelson got the first goal. Flyers backup goalie Brian Elliott was kind of giving me some agita, because he was playing out of his mind in the first period, and the old standing on his head, as they like to say in hockey.
Yeah.
But Nelson, the Islanders forced a turnover in the Flyers zone, and Nelson got the puck in the slot, and just basically roofed a wrister. And that was the significance of that shot. It was really the first open look the Islanders had. The Islanders had a lot of shots in the first period, and the goal came in the second period, but that was really the first open look, and where nobody from the Flyers was hanging on an Islanders player as they were taking a shot. And you could see that Elliott could be beaten high, but the Islanders weren't able to get any shots up there. Everything was bottom half of the goal and lower. And Nelson just absolutely roofed a wrist shot. He really did sling that puck at the goal. I don't even know how he did it and got it on his stick like that, but there was no chance that Elliott was stopping that. And once that happened, then, once the Islanders get a lead, Islander fans, I know I do, get very confident because they're going to play defense. And that the other team isn't going to go on any kind of an offensive run. So even though the Flyers tied the game, I know personally, I was pretty confident that the Islanders would get the lead back, at which they did when Pajot scored.
Right.
It was like Pajot. You remember like Matt Bell?
I do.
Anyway, but that, and then Nelson gets another one in the third period, and even though the Flyers scored, they got a goal with 1:05 left in the third period left in the game. After pulling their goalie, I'm still in a fairly confident way. And even though, I was a little bit surprised to see that Thomas Greiss started the game instead of Varlamov, just because Varlamov had played so well in the opening games, except for the one game. But I'll tell you what, Greiss really had a strong game,
right.
Very strong game. I was very impressed with him, especially in the second period. Because as much as the Islanders dominated the first period, the Flyers came back and did the same in the second period. I mean, they outshot the Islanders. I think it was 17-3. So, they completely turned the game around. Came away with the score tied 1-1, and you figured that Philly had the momentum for the last period, and the Islanders just took it back almost as soon as the period started.
Yeah, and Greiss was an interesting choice because, it wasn't like he was needed to come in. I think it wasn't like I don't know.
It was purely a rest situation. It was 2 games and 2 nights, back to backs.
Right.
So Barry Trotz said, "All right, you know what? I got a goalie who worked pretty hard last night, and I'm not going to put it on him to have to rescue us 2 nights in a row. And I have a perfectly good backup goalie here, so I'm going to use him." And the Flyers did the same thing with Elliott. So, I mean, it was something that both coaches obviously, took a look at and said, all right, you know what, I'm not going to go with my number one guy, the guy who's hot for me in the playoffs. I'm going to, give each of those guys a rest and not force them to play 2 games in 2 nights. It's not easy, especially in the playoffs. The focus and the concentration that's required of a goalie in playoff hockey is higher, considerably higher than it is in the regular season. And that's something that as a coach you have to watch. And I thought it was a good move by both coaches. Put your second guy in. It's not like they're either one of them was bad. I mean, I'm not a big Greiss fan, but I know Greiss can have good games. And yes, yesterday he had an outstanding game. Philly could have scored 5-6 goals. He made a handful of really outstanding saves during that game.
No, I agree. I was just impressed with this whole team. I mean, it's good that they're peaking at the right moment, I guess is the best way to describe this team right now because of what was happening before the COVID took over. It's been good.
Yeah, no, I'll kind of finish with this, but I saw something on Twitter last night that mentioned that the Islanders are playing boring hockey. And our man Peter Body, who's now at the New York Post and actually is now off furlough and is back at the New York Post. But he said he mentioned something. It was a great point. He said, do you know who else won? And they said they were boring, but they were boring all the way to winning the Stanley Cup.
New Jersey Devils.
Lou Lamoriello.
That's right,
New Jersey Devils. So who's the Islanders GM now, brother?
Lou Lamoriello.
And my response to Peter's tweet was, it's never boring when you win. I don't care how you play. It's never boring when you win. Winning is awesome.
That is true. But one thing about the Islanders, they have how many people in the Hall of Fame? Usually you want your players to have that type of greatness. They don't have to be, show-offs. But you want them to be good. And sometimes Lamoriello, as a general manager, was anti-star.
That's true. He had an ultimate star in Martin Brodeur. So
that's it.
If Lamoriello has a star, he probably would prefer it to be his goalie. I'm sure he would love to have a Hall of Fame goalie every year. But in terms of skaters, he very much is looking to put together 12 skaters, four lines and 6D, and he would like all of them to be, fairly equal in talent, I think. Because you look at last night, Brock Nelson, 2 goals. And where'd that come from? He hasn't had the best of series, and Barzal, who's your star, he didn't score, but he had a great game last night. A lot of skating, a lot of controlling the puck. I mean, he really kind of dictated a lot of what was going on out there, even if he didn't have a goal. But to me, Greiss was certainly one of the stars of the game. I mean, he, like I said before, he really was outstanding last night. So that's what Lamoriello wants, and he wants all of his players to be of the mindset that, hey, if this guy's going to shoot, I'm going to get in front of it, and I'm going to block a shot and help my goalie out. So that's where we are with the Islanders right now. They're playing the same very consistent hockey night after night, and Trotz last night, he said after the game, he said that was one of the worst games the Islanders have played in the playoffs. And I didn't think they played badly, but it definitely was not nearly as good as how they played on Saturday night. I thought Saturday's game was much better. The Islanders controlled the game Saturday. Last night, Sunday night, they didn't control it as much, but they played a good third period, and that was what won the game for them.
No, I agree, and this is so great that this is happening, but like you said, if they win the whole thing, Islander fans won't be able to enjoy it, and it would have been the Barclays Center, I guess. I don't know, or maybe it would have been the Coliseum. Maybe they would have changed it again. Who knows? But let's be honest. When Islander fans get going, they're one of the loudest crowds in the whole league. So, let's go Islanders. LGI.
Hashtag anyway, LGI.
LGI. What's going on with Aaron Judge, brother?
He's hurt again.
What?
He's hurt again.
Now, what's the deal? Why does he keep hurting?
If I had the answer to that, brother, I'd be the trainer of the New York Yankees. I don't know.
Every year since he's been up, he gets somewhere along the line he gets hurt. Then if it's going to be every year, then that's going to take away from all rise.
Away from a lot, brother. It's going to take away from a Hall of Fame career. Is what it's going to take away from. I don't know, because a couple times in his career he got hurt early. But one of them was he got hit by a pitch and he broke a bone in his wrist.
Right.
And that's bad luck. That's not being injury prone. But now it's turning into, is Aaron Judge injury prone? Because he had this calf tightness, and the Yankees put him on the injured list, and I thought that was a mistake, and Aaron Judge thought it was a mistake, because 2 days after they did it, he's like, yeah, I feel fine. And now I got to sit for another week because they put me on the IL. Well, he finally comes off the IL, and what happens? First game back, he's like, oh, yeah, my calf feels tight. So then the Yankees go back and they put him on. Because the Yankees, you have to understand with the Yankees, they're always planning for the postseason. So, which it's probably a little bit arrogant, but that's the way this team is built. And especially this season with the expanded playoffs, basically any team that finishes above 500 is going to have a shot at the playoffs. And the Yankees are certainly going to finish above 500. So they're always saying, all right, we want our guys to be healthy for the postseason. And if that means missing a few games during the regular season, then fine. We don't care. We'll miss it. We'll get our guys healthy, and we'll have the best chance to win the World Series because we'll have healthy people by then. That's the plan anyway. It doesn't necessarily work out that way. But Aaron Judge, I don't know what's going on with him, and I can't stand it. You know, the social media doctors come out of the woodwork when somebody like Judge or Giancarlo Stanton gets hurt. And starts saying, well, he was resting all this time. How can he get hurt again? Well, you know, injuries happen. But then they'll say, oh, why doesn't he stretch more? Why doesn't, and I'm guilty of that myself sometimes because I don't know what the regimens that these guys have. I do know that Stanton lost a lot of weight in the off season and wasn't as bulky when he came into this season, but he still got hurt. And we're still waiting for him to come back. Judge, I don't know. And I saw something over the weekend that said the Yankees kind of having a shakeup with their training staff could actually be adding to the injuries, which is strange to me because last year they had a bunch of injuries, and that was the reason they made the changes was because somebody wasn't happy with whoever was in charge, and
right.
That they obviously had a bunch of injuries last year, and we talked about this a little bit last week. This year, it's been a little more in terms of pitching, and that's been an issue. Especially, the Yankees just they snapped a 7-game losing streak. They played 5 games against the Mets over the weekend. The Mets swept the doubleheader on Friday, which extended the Yankees' losing streak to 7 games. If they would have lost on Saturday, and there was a very decent chance of that happening, they would have been the Yankees' longest losing streak in a quarter of a century. All right, the Yankees don't do 8-game losing streaks. It's not what they do. But we wound up. I was not at all happy with anything in the world on Friday because it just seemed like the Yankees bullpen has been blowing leads left and right. Chapman gave up a home run. Chad Green, who's been phenomenal all season. And granted, it's a small sample size. He'd pitched something like 14 innings or something like that, but he'd only given up 3 hits or 4 hits or whatever. I mean, it's phenomenal pitching. But then he gave up 3 home runs in an inning to the Mets. So when you look at what's going on, especially with the bullpen, because the starters had been doing okay. I mean, nothing great, but all of a sudden you got what is supposed to be one of the best bullpens in baseball, just giving up home runs all over the place and coughing up leads. Yeah, that's a problem. Because
it's more of a problem for the Yankees, like you said.
That's what I'm
this is not some. Yeah, I know, but this, if it was another team, if it was the Mets, it would be like, oh, it's the Mets. It's the Yankees, and the Yankees and Yankee fans especially, I think, scare easier because they're not used to doing this losing streak.
Well, I don't necessarily think the Yankee fans scare more easily, but there certainly is a higher expectation.
Yeah, that means they scare easier.
No, it doesn't. But it means from the standpoint of there are expectations of this bullpen because look what it did last year. I mean, this bullpen was a lights out bullpen last year, but right now Zach Britton is on the injured list, and he's supposed to come back this week sometime. Supposedly, Aaron Boone said yesterday. Tommy Kahnle had Tommy John surgery, so he's out for the year. So the bullpen isn't as deep as it has been. And again, I mean, Chad Green, who had been totally dependable all season, all of a sudden has a couple outings. He gave up a home run to Freddie Freeman last week that basically handed Atlanta a game. And like I said the other day against the Mets, 3 home runs in an inning, which totally turned that game around. I was watching that game and expected to win, and all of a sudden, boom, 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 and Jake Marisnick for the Mets hit a home run. Talk about an all-field no-hit guy. When Jake Marisnick hits a home run off you, that's when I start losing confidence in any pitcher. He's not a home run hitter kind of guy.
Sure.
So from that standpoint, when you have the Mets sweeping you in a doubleheader and your losing streak is going to 7, yeah, there's some reasons to be depressed and not necessarily panicky because I still think the Yankees would make the playoffs, but it causes you to look at what the team is doing and kind of reflect on last year and say, all right, you know what? Last year it was all next man up and like all these cute little slogans that they have. But stuff like that doesn't happen every year. You're not going to sit here and get all, like, the injuries that the Yankees have had this year is basically a duplication of last season. That's not going to happen every year. You're not going to be able to withstand that number of injuries, especially with key players. And when an offense loses an Aaron Judge and a Giancarlo Stanton repeatedly, you're not going to be able to maintain the level. Because if you look at, like, let's use Gio Urshela as an example. Gio Urshela last year was a 300 hitter, hitting with power. Well, this year he's got injury issues himself. He's got bone spurs in his elbow, and his batting average has been plummeting in the last week and a half or so. And I think, if this was a normal season and guys were healthy, there's a good chance that Gio Urshela would probably sit out or get some treatment or get some sort of maybe I don't know if they could do an arthroscopic surgery and remove the bone chips and have him back in a few weeks. I don't know if that's possible, but I think that something like that would be looked at. Instead, Gio Urshela is still in the lineup, and he's trying to play through it, but that's what's going on. Gary Sanchez right now, even though he hit what proved to be a game-winning grand slam yesterday, is still batting about 130. So, we're 30-something games into the season. This is no longer, a small sample size / bad start. This is Gary Sanchez, who, when you talk to baseball people, they say he is one of the best hitters on the team. From purely he knows how to hit and he should hit and his expectations are as a hitter, he is one of the best hitters on the team. Well, he's batting 130. So I'm thrilled that he hit a grand slam yesterday, and I'm thrilled that he he kind of proved himself in that situation, because if you remember the game on Saturday, Aaron Boone left Eric Kratz, the backup catcher, in to face Dellin Betances there was, I think, 1 out or no outs and a runner on third, because basically he wanted a fly ball. And he was looking for a sacrifice fly, and he doesn't have the confidence that Gary Sanchez could come in, pinch hit, and make contact, because Gary Sanchez has been striking out a lot. So leaving Eric Kratz squares to bunt, Betances throws the ball 10 feet over the catcher's head, and Clint Frazier comes home to score, and the Yankees win on a walk-off wild pitch. So, but that's where we are with Gary Sanchez, who's supposed to be one of the best hitters on the team, is that he stays on the bench in an obvious pinch hitting situation because his manager doesn't have the confidence in him that he's going to make contact to get a sacrifice fly.
Well, at 130, Tim, I would have absolutely no confidence in any player.
I have no argument with you.
Yeah, it reminds me a little of how disappointing Pete Alonso's been so far this season. Not doing what he did last year, and he's just not looking the same. And
yeah, I mean, Alonso has he's been kind of a mystery this season. I don't know what. I don't know why he's still struggling. It certainly is a mystery. And Luis Rojas, the Mets manager, has moved him down in the order. I think he was batting 7th the other day or something. But he's a guy that he's. I'm looking for his stats right now. Yeah, 220 batting average, 6 home runs, 18 RBIs. Now in 33 games, which basically, I mean, that's half the season now, but it's basically 1/5 of a major league season. So you'd be looking at 1/5. That would be 30 home runs and 90 RBIs. So,
which wouldn't be a bad season.
It's not a bad season, but it's not a Pete Alonso season. I mean, I'm not going to sit here. Anybody who's expecting Pete Alonso to hit 50 home runs and drive in 120 runs every season is delusional, because that's not going to happen. But you expect a little more than 30 and 90, and especially a 220 batting average from the guy who was the rookie of the year last year and terrorized major league pitchers. I mean, he has not been the same hitter. And he's hit a few home runs, but he hasn't been that guy that he was last year or anything even close.
let's put it this way: when Pete comes up to bat, last year was like, oh my God, what's going to happen? This year it's like, oh, what's going to happen? I mean, that's I think the difference between just as a fan watching him compared to last season. Last season was exciting. You didn't know what this guy was going to do. This year, the 220 average was maybe what bothers me even more than the lack of homers. It's the average, because if he's batting 250, it'd be there'd be a lot more confidence flying around.
Chances are, if he was batting 250, he'd have a decent number more RBIs. But that being probably said, I will admit that when Alonso came up against Chad Green on Friday, I was concerned, because I want to say, I think Green walked somebody. I don't remember exactly what happened, but the situation was that when it got to Alonso, I was like, geez, you really wanted to avoid this situation. And then Alonso just crushed the ball to center field. And then that he still has, for me anyway, he still has that respect as a hitter you don't want to face in a critical situation. But that being said, he still, you still can strike this guy out. I mean, he's striking out at about one every 3 at bats, which is slightly above what he did last season. Last season he struck out 183 times. But you know what? I'll take 183 strikeouts if it comes with, like he said, last year's 260 batting average and 53 home runs. I'm not expecting 53. To me, Pete Alonso should be a 40 home run guy, though. And
I hope so.
6 home runs in what is now half a season is not getting it done. I mean, he needs to get on some kind of a hot streak for the Mets to have a chance at the playoffs. And he's looked a little lost out there. And like I said, he is one of the guys, one of the specific guys for the Mets if the Mets are going to have a chance. But that being said, I don't want to put anything on the hitters, because the Mets' real problem is pitching. And if the Mets are going to have any chance of landing a playoff spot, then Brodie Van Wagenen needs to make a deal today and get some pitching, because the Mets desperately need pitching. And
we should say today's the trade deadline.
Yes, that's what I was just about to say, brother, when I said end. At 4:00 is the trade deadline. So, here's the danger, though, for the Mets, is that Van Wagenen has traded so many prospects. Who do you deal? And I mean, you're looking at, to me, the only guy they really have to trade, and I don't know how good of a pitcher you can get, is Ahmed Rosario. Because, there's Andres Jimenez guy he's been playing a little bit. He's a young shortstop, but talent evaluators say he's the better guy between the two, between Rosario and Jimenez. So if you can trade Rosario, who's a fairly established major league shortstop, he's certainly not an outstanding major league shortstop, but he's young, he's controllable, he does have some talent, he's been a big time prospect in the past. But what kind of pitcher does that get you? It certainly doesn't get you a Mike Clevenger from the Cleveland Indians, who they're said to want 4 pretty high prospects for, which is a crazy price. But where does that go, and where does what can Van Wagenen get without further mortgaging the future, which he's already done with the trades for Cano and Edwin Diaz, and what was the other one? The other trade that he made for Marcus Stroman. So. Right. Who really at this point is given the Mets nothing and just cost them 2 very good prospects. So, can Van Wagenen mortgage the future further, and will he?
No, I don't think he will.
Especially after what happened earlier this week, where he Van Wagenen thought he was criticizing the commissioner, and then inadvertently found out he was criticizing his own owner. With this whole snafu about the Mets playing a game that they actually wound up not playing because of the whole the whole protest about Black Lives Matter. That turned into a total Mets boondoggle, and I was fairly surprised that Van Wagenen didn't get fired this week, to be honest.
Well, I expected that too. I'm going to take a break right now, Tim. You're listening to 90.3 WHPC, the voice of Nassau Community College. You're listening to From the Press Box here every Monday, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. It becomes a podcast later on for those who might miss the show or want to listen to it again or whatever reason. We're here, like I said, every Monday, 9 to 10. And this hour of From the Press Box is brought to you by Ed Newlands and Good Gold Radio, playing the hits that radio stations just don't play anymore. That's Good Gold Radio every Monday, 10 a.m. to 12 noon, with Big Ed right here on 90.3 WHPC. Now, brother,
I think we can give the phone number, brother.
Okay, try. Give it out. Let's see what happens.
Let's give the phone number. See if people can call in because of the remote show.
Okay.
Give us a call at 516-572-7440 if you want to ask a question or give us a comment and let us know what's on your mind.
Now, brother, are we done with the Yankees?
If you want to be, brother, it's up to you.
Well, we're going to talk about the Mets right now, and we'll talk about Mets pitching. And who do you think Rob Leonard would like to see back with the Mets as a pitcher? Who would that be?
Well, I know who Rob Leonard wants always to see back as a pitcher is your man, Bartolo Colon.
Big sexy baby. And you know what?
I personally think is absurd, but you know, I know you'll want Bartolo Colon to be pitching for the Mets until he's maybe about 55 years old. But
better than most of the pitchers the Mets have right now.
I can't argue with that. That's the problem.
See, that's the answer.
But the Mets pitching is that bad. That's how bad the Mets pitching is. Is that Bartolo Colon might actually be an improvement. So
I know he'd be an improvement.
You know, yesterday the Mets put Steven Matz and Dellin Betances on the injured list. So that's two pitchers down. Betances, he said he had a right lat tightness, which, if I remember correctly, was one of the first injuries he had before his whole season last year with the Yankees, which actually resulted in him pitching 2/3 of an inning and then tearing his Achilles tendon and having surgery, which is why the Yankees wound up letting him go and wound up with him signing with the Mets. I thought that was the first of a series of injuries for him. But then Steven Matz also was placed on the injured list with what was termed discomfort in his left shoulder. So,
right.
You know, I mean, right now the Mets starting rotation is a joke. It really is. I mean, and this is a team that has been built for, I don't even, the last, 5, 6, 7 seasons has been all about pitching. It's been all about...
That's all you care about with the Mets.
We got DeGrom, we got Wheeler, we got Syndergaard, we have Harvey, we have all these guys, and the pitching is going to get us to the World Series, and we don't need to score a lot of runs. We'll win a bunch of games 3-1 or 3-2, just like the Islanders, basically. Well, right now the Mets have Jacob DeGrom, and that's it.
That's right.
There is nothing else. Seth Lugo started last night for the Mets. He has been pressed into service as a starter, and he pitched fairly well yesterday. If I was a Met fan, I couldn't complain about that. But Seth Lugo, at this point, isn't going to be able to give you 6 innings because he was a reliever a week and a half ago.
Right.
He hasn't been stretched out like that. So he is building endurance in his arm as this season goes on. But let's face it, the season's not going to go on much longer. We got about a month left in the season.
This is where Bartolo Colon comes in. It's going to be a short season anyway, so it's not like you need him for the full season of games. You only have 30 more games to go. So, you know, if he's a starter, that means he pitches 5 or 6 games. If you make him a reliever, he's going to pitch 10 or 12. I think it'll be
5. There's a month left in the season. You can't. I mean, would it be the worst decision in the world? I don't think so, because like I said, the one good thing about Bartolo Colon, you don't have to wait for him to get into shape because he's never been in shape.
Never, ever.
So, hey, Bart, here's the ball. Go throw. Okay.
If I'm him right now, I'm going someplace where there's a camera so they can see me, and I'm going to pitch so they can see me more. And people can say, okay, we can use it maybe for the last half of the season or something. It's not going to happen, but it's something that I joke about it because I love Bartolo, but you know what? It wouldn't have been a bad deal if they brought it back, and I wish they had.
I will tell you this, brother.
At this point of the Mets season,
I will tell you this. I did mention this last night to our man Bob Tuck, who's in, we were talking Islanders and talking Mets, and his response. We were talking on the Facebook, and his response was 3 facepalm emojis when I mentioned that my brother wants Bartolo Colon back on the Mets. It wasn't encouraging, brother. I'll tell you. Although I will say also, I put a poll up on Twitter. As far as, do you want would you want Bartolo Colon back with the Mets? And shockingly to me, bro, very shockingly to me, it was 2/3 for yes, bring back Big Sexy.
You see? So, and I did that on my Facebook page, and I had about 12 responses, mostly saying bring him back.
But that's how bad the Mets rotation is right now.
That's right. And this short season would have been perfect. By the way, brother, I don't know if you know this. Last night I'm checking his stats. Bartolo Colon, first of all, is ahead of Juan Marichal, which was his goal was. He has 247 wins. Marichal has 245. Obviously, Colon's played a lot more seasons. And they have about the same losses, too. But this is the reason why one of the reasons Bartolo Colon's not making the Hall of Fame. His ERA is like 4.12. And Juan Marichal is like 2.35 or something.
Juan Marichal was a Hall of Famer.
Yes. And as much as I love Bartolo, he didn't have all these great seasons. He had a couple of seasons where he like 2 wins. And I totally forgot he played for the Yankees too. I know you didn't forget that, but
Bartolo's been on several teams, brother.
Yes.
And he's had a handful of seasons where baseball observers, let's call them, said, "Oh, okay, Bartolo's done now." And then like the Phoenix, brother, he has risen from the ashes.
Yep.
It didn't involve any weight loss, I'll tell you that, but he has risen from the ashes, and he was able to make the comeback and get back on the team and have some productive seasons. But he's done that a couple of times where, like, when he signed that 2-year deal with the Braves, which I couldn't believe the Braves gave somebody that old a 2-year deal, and he flamed out in the first season, and a lot of people said, "Oh, that's it, Bartolo's done. The Braves wasted a bunch of money." And then he came back, and I don't even remember who it was with, but he came back and he had another pretty good season. I think it was for Texas.
Yeah, that's why he has 247 wins.
He's been able to come back, and it's not like he reinvented himself. He still throws. His game is he'll throw 90% fastballs.
Yep.
He just locates his fastball very well, but that's basically what he does. He'll throw a fastball. He'll hit spots, and as long as he can maintain that control, he'll be successful. But again, he's 40-something years old, and I don't think he's coming back.
I don't either. I mean, I as much as I joke about it, at the same time, at this point, I think it would be a good point. Quickly, brother, because we're starting to run out of time. Basically, it's been announced that Steve Cohen will be the next majority owner of the New York Mets. A-Rod and J-Lo have announced that they didn't say they didn't have enough financing.
They bowed out, but let's just say they bowed out. Let's not embarrass them. They're still wealthy. Let's not embarrass them for being so wealthy.
There's wealth, and then there's buying a baseball team in New York. So, that there is a difference.
A-Rod tried. I'll give him credit. He tried to put a bunch of people together, but I said this last week. The Met fans should be happy that A-Rod and J-Lo are not getting the team, not because of Alex Rodriguez and how much they hate him, because he used to be a Yankee and they can crow about steroids, he's a cheater, whatever. They don't care as long as he had the money. They wouldn't care. But the fact of the matter is that the bank would have owned more of the Mets than any person in that deal. Right. The Mets would have been looking at a Miami Marlins type fire sale if Alex Rodriguez and Jennifer Lopez would have wound up getting the team.
Right, because the bank would have said, you know what, we got to cut our losses first.
Well, it wouldn't be the bank saying that. It would be the people in charge, and A-Rod would be in charge. And I'll tell you right now, as a Yankee fan, I would have enjoyed that, because the Yankees would have been first in line for Jacob deGrom. And Jacob deGrom would have been the key selling point. So if I'm the Yankees, I would have emptied the minor league system to get a guy like Jacob deGrom, who, let's face it, is on a favorable contract And hey, here's Jacob deGrom and Garrett Cole as your 1-2. You think the Yankees are losing any World Series for the next 5 years?
Well,
that's a hell of a 1-2.
That's true. So
Cy Young and Cy Young.
Right. So it's going to be fun to see what happens. From what we've heard, I mean, obviously the deal hasn't been finalized yet, or maybe it has. I don't know. We haven't heard. We haven't seen the paperwork. Let's put it that way.
No, today was supposed to be the final day in terms of just getting everything done. But there was some sort of an announcement that Cohen was going to be the guy. So now he has exclusive. He has won the negotiating rights. So we're still not anywhere close to a deal. Although it should be fairly close because how much is there to talk about?
Nothing,
I mean the parameters for a deal are there. You still need Major League Baseball's approval, which I assume that they have. I don't want to say they've given it, but there have to be indications that they will give it. Otherwise, why would they be bothering? Why would the Mets be bothering with Steve Cohen if baseball would have said at some point, "Hey, not this guy. We don't want him," and they would have moved on to somebody else. Because I mean, let's face it, Cohen's got some issues. He's got some.
He's had some legal issues. Yeah,
exactly. And A-Rod obviously has had them as well, especially with Major League Baseball. So I don't know that there was a perfect candidate, but obviously as far as who has the most money, Steve Cohen is the guy, and that's who the Mets, that's who the Wilpons are looking for, and that's who what's the guy's name? Saul Katz.
Saul Katz is brother.
Yeah, that's the guy he's looking for. He just wants the biggest pockets. Because what's in Steve Cohen's pockets will soon be in Saul Katz's pockets.
Right, and we should say if we read right that the Wilpons are going to still keep some percentage of the team ownership, most likely 5%.
I've seen 5%.
And the only reason they're there, it's not that they have any say. They're not. It's a tax reason. If they sell the whole thing and collect the whole thing, they have to pay more in taxes. Percentage-wise, if you still keep a percentage, even if you have nothing to do with the team, don't care, maybe except to make sure your season tickets are correct, you pay a lot less in taxes. So, and I mean that's just the way it is. And supposedly,
let's face it, brother, it also gives Jeff Wilpon something to do. That's all that's about. He's like Eric Trump. I mean, come on.
Jeff Wilpon, according to the Post, wasn't even part of the negotiation. He supposedly doesn't like Steve Cohen, didn't like him, I guess, for whatever reason, because maybe he didn't kiss Jeffy's ring or something. But you know what? You don't kiss Jeff Wilpon's butt. You talk to Fred Wilpon, because Fred's the guy whose name's on it. And I assume it includes ownership of the Cyclones, and it includes
everything. The whole package has got to be on the table. And like I said, Jeff Wilpon is Eric Trump. You don't talk to him. You don't need to talk to him. He's nobody. He's not in charge of anything.
I agree.
He likes to think he is. He talks like he is, but he's not.
No, we told this story before where there was I'm sure the guy's dead by now because he looked dead when we met him. But there was an usher we met years ago who told us an off the record story about Jeff Wilpon.
That guy is.
Rest in peace. Oh, I wish we got a picture with him. He was so cool. I love that guy. We should have got a picture. It was like, hey, but it was all dark.
He had some good stories, though.
Yeah, he did. So anyway, brother, the Mets, just like not good. With ownership change is going to be a good thing. That's why I don't think Brody's going to do anything today, because if Steve Cohen is maybe not going to have a say yet, he's going to say. He probably will have a say in the sense of maybe we shouldn't trade anyone right now. Let's see what we got, and worry about it next year when I take over. Because he might, let's say he gives away a prospect that Cohen doesn't want to give away for whatever. Because I'm sure Cohen's going to have his own baseball people, and so I think that might be part of the reason. Maybe you don't see anything today, which
I mean the Mets really can't afford to give away more of their future. And
no, that's why.
I mean, David Peterson is still one of their best quote unquote prospects, even though he's been with the major league team pretty much all season. And he's been their second best pitcher. So if you trade him, you don't really solve a problem because you're trading a pitcher, and that's what they need. I mean, the Mets lineup right now, really goes at least 7 deep. So they should be scoring runs, and they should be hitting better than they are, although they did hit pretty well in a few games against the Yankees this weekend. But, I mean, this is a team that, at the very least, should be a 500 team, and they should be able to. I mean, to me, if they can get an established pitcher for a bargain price, I make that trade just to have a guy who can eat some innings. Because Porcello is unreliable. Waka is, I don't think, I think injuries are going to be an issue for him for the rest of the season. And I don't even know who's in the rotation after that. So, Seth Lugo and the Mets are just going to try mixing and matching and trying to get through games and seeing who else maybe can come up from the minor leagues. But there's not a lot there. So no. I think if you can get a guy who can eat some innings and be at best or at worst reliable, I don't think the Mets are going to acquire any sort of star pitchers. But talk about how important would Marcus Stroman be right now to this team, as opposed to him bailing on them and saying well, I don't want to play because of COVID. And I understand the reason. I'm not putting the onus on him because everybody's making that decision on their own. But how big would having a Marcus Stroman be for this team right now to say, all right, we have another dependable, good, reliable arm right now. And he's not there and he's not coming back. So, the Mets are on their own.
It's a great thought, brother. I agree with that. That is so perfect of what this season is all about, I think, you wish someone was there and he's not.
Yes. So like I said, hitting wise, the Mets, I don't really think there are a lot of improvements they could make, from that side of the ball. But pitching wise, and like the Yankees bullpen wise, I wouldn't be surprised if the Yankees made a move for either a starter or a bullpen arm. Because if you look yesterday, I'll just go back to the Yankees real quick. Davy Garcia, he was outstanding yesterday. And he's the kid that the Yankee fans have been talking about. The Yankees have been talking about for a long time. He's been getting a lot of hype in the minor leagues. He came out yesterday and dominated the Mets. And all the comparisons that you hear, first of all, any Latin pitcher who can throw hard immediately gets the Pedro Martinez comparison. But Davy Garcia looked like Pedro yesterday. He's a little short guy on the mound. He's 5'9", but he was dealing yesterday. I was so excited to watch him pitch. And that first game was so interminable yesterday. I wasn't even going to watch the second game. And then the Yankees came back and they from the 7-2 deficit and they won the first game 8-7. And I got all recharged again. I was all psyched. And then I heard Davy Garcia's and I'm like, oh, Davy Garcia's pitching the second game. I'm definitely watching this game now. I went from not wanting to watch it to absolutely watching it all in the span of about 20 minutes. And then Garcia lit it up yesterday. He just dominated the Mets. They couldn't touch him. He was throwing 90, 96, 97. All of his pitches were moving all over the place. He was pounding the strike zone. Aaron Boone, after the game, he couldn't contain himself. He was gleeful after the game. Big smile on his face. He was happy. He's looking at that's my future right there. That's my future is Garrett Cole and Davy Garcia and Luis Severino. That's a pretty nice 1, 2, 3.
I agree, especially when your other two major players are injured or just not doing it. So that was nice to see. Okay, brother, I'll let you pick the next topic. What do you want to pick next?
I don't know.
That's your choice, man.
Well, I want to talk about the Black Lives Matter thing, brother, because we haven't even touched upon it yet. So. Let's.
Well, we have 3 minutes left. I apologize.
Thank you, brother. Thanks. 3 minutes. Well, the sports world, brother, took a collective pause a few days ago, early last week. So it's certainly like we're not breaking news here. But the NBA shut down its playoffs after the murder of or the death, I'll say, of that happened in Wisconsin. Let's put it that way. And that the Bucks and the Magic said they're not going to play. And reports later came out that LeBron James for the Lakers and Kawhi Leonard, cousin Kawhi of the Clippers, they wanted to just cancel the season. And because we're still dealing with the idea of racial inequality in our country. and nothing seems to be getting done about it. And police officers continue to shoot unarmed black
but at
men
the
and
same
women.
time, canceling the season would do absolutely nothing except cancel
but
the season.
says you, brother. I mean, I respectfully disagree with what you're saying there, because I mean, let's face it. The NBA shut down the playoffs. They took a few days off to bring attention to this issue, and I absolutely agree with what they did. I'm certainly not going to criticize it, because this is how they get attention. This is how they get eyeballs on the issue. And I think that if nothing else, the NBA, for example, got owners of their teams to turn arenas into voting places for this November. Now that might not
great
sound
news,
like much.
but it doesn't, because
Doesn't what?
It doesn't, only because, like in New York.
But you're saying doesn't? I don't know. Doesn't what?
It doesn't matter. I don't think in
yes,
many ways.
Yes, it matters.
It
matters, brother.
Not in New York.
Don't look at everything as New York. Around the country, voter suppression is a very real thing.
In Kentucky, it is, but there's no stadium in Kentucky.
And in Georgia, there is. So you have people in a black community in Georgia where 600,000 people will have to go to one voting place. So you're guaranteed to stand in line for 7, 8, 9, 10 hours to be able to vote. In New York, we have the advantage of I can stroll into my voting place. I can predict and tell you in Queens, and I can vote, and it'll take me 5 minutes.
Me too.
That doesn't exist everywhere in the country.
I know that, but not everywhere is there an NBA team. Well, I mean, it's a great idea. I mean, I think more arenas should be used, because you can fit a lot more booths in there and do a lot of things in there.
Exactly, and that allows people to anything that makes voting easier. I am for.
I am for too. I mean, my main problem with what happened wasn't that they did it. It's just that it happened on Thursday night. Trump's getting inaugurated, so to speak.
He got the nomination.
He got the nomination. That's the number one story, no matter what. You're a newspaper guy. You know that. And this sort of got pushed to the side a little bit, because they only did it for one day. And then the next day was the March on Washington, which would have been a better day to do it, because it was the March on Washington. But they weren't going to do it on a Friday. They did it on a Thursday.
Well, they did it for a few nights. I mean, a lot of sports shut down.
Yeah, I know, but I'm not sure if it actually, this is such a weird season to begin with, Tim. If they would have canceled the season, it'd be like, what is wrong with you guys? And it wouldn't be for people like me. It'd be, other people too.
Well, we'll have to talk about this more next. We'll have to talk about this more this next week, brother, because we got to wrap it up.
Brother. We got to wrap this up. You're listening to 90.3 WHPC, the voice of Nassau Community College. From the press box, I'm Rob Leonard. Of course, you are
Tim Leonard.
Thank you for listening, and thank you, Sean Novat, for keeping us on. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.